Welcome back. Well, it has been an incredibly busy Monday morning of news. The Supreme Court overturning some of President Trump's tariffs on Friday after striking down his emergency use authorization, one of the top stories. The Trump administration responded immediately by announcing global tariffs, first at 10%, then raising that to 15% on Saturday. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent joined me yesterday, telling me that revenue from the tariffs will not drop, and they've already begun to replace all of the revenues potentially lost for 2026. Watch.
The Supreme Court said the president can put in a full embargo, but he cannot collect $1. So the president still has the most draconian measure for negotiations, and that under Sections 232, Sections 301, we're already collecting substantial tariff revenue. The IEEPA tariffs are going to be replaced in 3 days with the Section 122.
Okay.
Treasury projections show 2026 revenues are from tariffs unchanged. The president announced on Friday and then amended over the weekend 15% global tariff using a very robust authority from 1974. Those will be layered on with Section 232, Section 301, and the 122s. They run for 150 days, and during that time, Commerce, USTR will be doing studies, and the studies will likely lead to increased tariff revenues. We've been in contact with our foreign trading partners, and they like the tariff deals, so they're not going to be changed.
The Supreme Court decision has certainly created some uncertainty. The European Union is now asking for full clarity about the decision, calling on President Trump to deliver on the agreed trade deal agreed upon back in August. Joining me now is the Wall Street Journal editor-in-chief, Emma Tucker, with more analysis. Emma, great to have you. Welcome.
Thank you.
So this Section 122 implemented on February 24th will go for 150 days. Incidentally, that tariff expires on Friday, July 24th, which is also the start of Congress's summer recess. Emma, how do you see this ruling impacting the president's trade agenda?
Well, I think it's clear that tariffs, in whatever form, aren't going to go anywhere because they have been the defining factor, if you like, one of the key defining factors of this presidency. And President Trump loves tariffs. He's not going to back down just because of this court ruling last week. But I think for us, covering, American business, I think we need to spare a thought for the incredible uncertainty that's now afflicting business and companies across the U.S. who are having to make these sort of long-term planning decisions in an atmosphere of really not knowing which way we're headed. So I think it's clear that the president is going to try and find a new avenue for reimposing tariffs, even after this 122 section expires in 150 days. But I think the difficulty for businesses is they don't know what that new regime is going to look like, what's going to replace it. And then as well, they don't know what kind of refunds, if any, they're likely to get from the fact that the court ruled the tariffs so far illegal.
Yeah, and Secretary Bessent told me that in terms of the refunds, that will be up to a lower court. So we'll know more about that coming up. But there are also exemptions to the 15% tariff, right? They're not stacking on the 232 tariffs. And in fact, there are exemptions to the USMCA compliant goods. That's one area, critical minerals, energy, natural resources. And the president is right now doing a new trade deal, we understand, bilateral deals between the U.S. and Mexico and the U.S. and Canada.
Yeah, I mean, I think some economists have calculated that the overall sort of marginal tariff rate hasn't actually changed very much under this new regime, and you've still got the carve-outs, as you said. But I think what's going to happen is that in order to pursue these other avenues, in order to keep tariffs imposed, the president's going to have to make a much clearer economic argument as to why he wants to do this. Also, if he wants to extend 122, he's going to have to get approval from Congress. So it could be that going forward, we get a much more sort of ordered regime around tariffs, which has got more of a sort of economic justification to it.
Yeah, which is why I have been talking this morning, asking the question of our lawmaker guests: is the idea of a reconciliation package now back on the table before the midterm elections, so that perhaps Congress can codify some of these things to give us more certainty? Emma, I see that your top story in the Journal this morning is about the chaos underway in Mexico. I want to ask you about that. The resort town of Puerto Vallarta and its local airport under siege following a military operation that killed the country's most wanted drug leader. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt confirmed U.S. involvement, writing on X, the United States provided intelligence support to the Mexican government in order to assist with an operation in Jalisco, Mexico, in which El Mencho, an infamous drug lord and leader within the Jalisco New Generation cartel, was eliminated. The Trump administration told Americans in the country to, quote, shelter in place. And I spoke with former FBI Special Agent Nicole Parker about this in the last hour. Here's what she said. Watch.
President Trump is saying enough is enough. Thousands and thousands of Americans have been killed. It is not okay, and he is protecting us. He is protecting all of us. Trump declared Jalisco Nueva Generación as a foreign terrorist organization group last year, which was the right move to do, because you know what? They are a terrorist organization. They are killing thousands of people. And again, this opens up the resources to take it just from criminal over to the terrorist side. This will not be tolerated. We will not back down.
And Emma, your lead story, Mexico takes on cartels as the killing of drug kingpins sparks violence. Gunmen wreak havoc and chaos in Mexican coastal retreat after the cartel killing.
Yes, I think this is a sign of quite how seriously President Sheinbaum is taking this issue. I mean, she's obviously under a lot of pressure from the Trump administration. And, you know, this is a sign that she's willing to do something that previous presidents, previous administrations in Mexico just haven't been prepared to do. It's high risk because those images coming out of Mexico that we saw this morning, those are not good for the tourist industry. And don't forget, you've got the World Cup, Soccer World Cup coming up in July. A high number of the matches are going to be played in Mexico. Is that really something that FIFA is going to be happy to see this morning?
Wow. Well, that's a great point, Emma. Meanwhile, let's talk Iran.
Do you want to go there? I mean, if you were thinking about booking your ticket to go and see a World Cup match, I mean, you know, people are going to be very nervous.
Hesitant, yeah. No, they're going to be hesitant. They're not going to want to go to Mexico at all. And you've got the State Department say shelter in place if you're in Mexico right now. Look, tensions are also mounting in the Middle East. The U.S. still negotiating with Iran on a nuclear deal. Both sides planning to meet Thursday in Geneva. Washington expecting to receive Iran's proposal on a nuclear deal tomorrow. But the U.S. has, in the meantime, ramped up its military assets. We've got an armada that is growing. In recent weeks, the president warned of limited strikes if a deal is not reached within 10 days. And I spoke with Florida Congressman Brian Mast. He's the chairman of the Foreign Affairs Committee on the likelihood of any military action. Here's what he said. Watch this.
I expect that Iran does not take the diplomatic off-ramp and that it comes to a strike for the president to protect the homeland of the United States of America, which absolutely this is against an imminent threat against the American people. I can give one example of Americans literally killed. The beginning of 2024, 3 American service members killed by the hand of Iran while they were in Jordan. That's one example. Continual attempts to fly drones to our merchant marine fleet, drones to our Navy vessels, you name it. They are constantly threatening America, and the president says no more. This comes to an end.
Emma, what do you see happening here? I mean, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff says Iran is just 1 week away from having industrial-grade bomb-making material and that the country is at 60% nuclear enrichment levels, despite the fact that the U.S. military took out much of that nuclear facility last year. Your reaction?
Well, I think, you know, we're in a where basically the president is at a crossroads on this. Either he signs a deal to curb Iran's nuclear program, or he launches, you know, an attack with very, very difficult to control consequences. And as you yourself pointed out, there's the biggest concentration now of air power in that region since 2003, the launch of the Iraq War. And the trouble with launching a big attack is, you know, it's very unclear who, you know, what regime change would look like, who would take over. And unlike with Venezuela, we're talking about an attack on a country that does have the capacity to inflict harm back. The Iranians have been very clear that they will retaliate. They will go after American troops in the region. So this is a very difficult one for President Trump. He needs to get enough concessions from a deal that he can take it as a win, that he will seriously curtail Iran's ability to create any sort of nuclear weapons, and if possible, limits on ballistic missiles and support for these terrorist organizations, Hamas and Hezbollah.
Yeah, absolutely. Emma, I wonder if this is going to be a part of the President's State of the Union tomorrow night. I know that it's going to be largely focused on the economy. The President will deliver the address tomorrow at 9 p.m. Eastern from the Capitol, expected to highlight his accomplishments, certainly economic accomplishments during his first year back in office, despite the setbacks from the Supreme Court. What do you expect coming out of the address tomorrow night?
Well, I think certainly on Iran, people will be looking for any sort of indication. But I think overall, what people will be looking for, certainly what we're looking for, is some indication as to what the next 2.5 years of this presidency is going to look like. I think you're absolutely right. The president will trumpet his wins on immigration, trade, the fact that the economy is proving very resilient. But what people are really want to know is, okay, so how hard is he going to carry on leading into the tariff agenda? What's the likely outcome with Iran? I think that'll be interesting to see who's there. Will the Supreme Court justices be in the room like they often are? What will the body language be like if they are there? I think what we're looking for is a kind of sense of where we're headed now for the next 2.5 years, especially with those midterms coming up in November.
Yeah, I mean, oftentimes they're sitting right there in the front row, the Supreme Court justices. That could be a little awkward. I don't see how President Trump won't refer to them after all of this. I really like the way you've been using video, Emma. I love listening to your reporters like you did this weekend on tariffs. So congrats on that and all the digital changes that you've done at the Journal. And finally, Emma, before you go, you were awarded recently the El Mundo International Journalism Award for Best Journalistic Work. Congratulations to you and your colleagues. Well done, Emma.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Maria. It was a great honor, and it's a reflection of the very kind of solid, reliable, trusted reporting that we do at the Journal.
Absolutely. Emma, good to see you. Come back soon. Emma Tucker is the editor-in-chief of the Wall Street Journal. Thank you. We'll be right back. Stay with us.